Alrighty, so in today's video, I am going to be briefly covering port security and just really quick, why is port security important? You can have attackers who are an inside threat, whether it's an employee or someone who's gained access to the building and just randomly plugging up their machine to wall ports that lead to Cisco or any switch ports can do a lot of damage. I have worked in environments where I have done assessments specifically for finding out vulnerabilities on the network, and I plugged my laptop into the wall port. I was able to identify what port on the switch I was connecting to, leading to from the wall port. I was able to identify configuration on the network like CDP neighbor, which is Cisco Discovery Protocol, which is typically something that you don't want enabled or leave enabled on your network as a security breach. There's a few ways to configure port security on your switch. Today I'm just going to go on how to configure it for shutting it down. The environments that I have been in, typically you want to set it so that it does shut down, because there's really sensitive information going through the network. So a lot of times, hey, we don't want to take the time to log the issue. Obviously there's logging regardless, but we don't want to go that far. We want to immediately shut down the port if there's an unknown MAC address on the network connecting to the port. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up this switch here, and I already just configured the host name. That's all I did. So by default, when you connect to a switch, this is what you see, and hopefully you are not connecting by telnet. That is a vulnerable protocol which runs on port 23. So typically you would see this if you had consoled into the switch, or if you had SSH to the switch. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit enable and configure terminal. Okay, I already know what port I want to configure for port security, so I'm gonna go ahead and go into my interface fast Ethernet 01. Okay, and the first part is we have to configure the port for switch mode access. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch port mode access. So now that port has been configured for that. And then now we're going to go ahead and configure switch port security. So switch port. Sorry if I could type today. Security. And I already know my MAC address because I took note of it here. So that's my MAC address that I'm going to be using. So let's go ahead and go back here. And now we're going to go ahead and configure the MAC address. Typically what I've seen in a lot of networks, depending on how large the network is, but I'm typically seeing about 5 MAC addresses added to that port. Now it could be changed. You might have a cubicle where you have shared users sitting, or some floating users, but even then you still want port security on those ports right there. So let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and configure it. So switch port. Okay, and then the last part, again, I said there's a couple settings that you can set for port security. I typically like to set it for shutdown. I don't want to take any chances, especially if you're in an environment that has really sensitive data. That might be credit card data, there might be highly classified data, depending on what type of environment you're in. So let's go ahead and we're going to configure this port to shut down for any violation. All right, and then lastly, I like to write what I just wrote to the switch memory. All right, and now I have seen sometimes an error. I don't know if it's an iOS or a firmware issue, but even though I have wrote that into the memory, for some reason it didn't save. So as best practice, we're going to actually save this to the startup config now. So let's go ahead and do that command. We're going to do copy running config startup config. Yes. Okay, so right now let's go ahead and exit. Okay, now let's go ahead and show, and as you can see, we have interface fast Ethernet 01. We have it is in port security mode, and we have the MAC address. Now, if we want to go ahead and do a little bit more digging, we can actually go here and run this command, show port security on the actual interface. So let's go show port security interface fast Ethernet. Okay, and as you can see, port security is enabled. Okay, and it is currently configured for shutdown. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching this video. I look forward to uploading more videos.